In the early 1970s, a quiet experiment began in a small psychology lab. There were no massive computers, no artificial intelligence, and certainly no social media. Just a simple room, a few volunteers, and a pair of strange glasses. These glasses looked ordinary at first glance. Thick frames, slightly tinted lenses, nothing extraordinary. But the moment someone put them on, their perception of the world subtly changed. Edges shifted, colors softened, faces seemed slightly different. The glasses didn't distort reality dramatically. Instead, they nudged perception just enough to influence how people interpreted what they were seeing. The researchers behind the experiment had a simple question. What if the way people see the world could influence the future of society itself? Not metaphorically, literally. The lead researcher, Dr. Kenneth Hammond, was fascinated by a strange pattern in human behavior. Throughout history, massive social movements seem to appear suddenly. Civil rights movements, political revolutions, cultural shifts. They looked spontaneous, like sudden storms. But Hammond suspected something else. He believed these movements didn't suddenly appear. They slowly formed beneath the surface long before anyone realized what was happening. The real question was, could subtle changes in perception reveal those hidden shifts before they exploded into public view? To test this, Hammond's team designed what they called perceptual bias lenses. Each pair of glasses slightly altered the way visual information was processed. Some lenses made contrasts sharper, others softened edges, some enhanced motion, making subtle body language easier to notice. Volunteers were then asked to watch simple scenes, people walking down streets, conversations between strangers, footage of crowds, everyday life. At first, the experiment seemed almost meaningless. Participants described what they saw and the researchers recorded their impressions. But something unexpected started happening. Certain groups of participants began noticing patterns that others completely missed. One person wearing a particular lens would comment on growing tension between groups in a crowd. Another would notice subtle signs of distrust in casual conversations. Someone else would observe small moments of solidarity forming between strangers. To most observers, these moments were invisible, but to the volunteers wearing certain lenses, they stood out immediately. Months later, something eerie happened. In several cities where these videos had been filmed, real social tensions began rising. Protests appeared, public debates intensified, cultural divisions became more visible. The volunteers who had worn certain lenses had unknowingly described early warning signs, not because the glasses predicted the future, but because they amplified subtle signals already present in human behavior. Hammond began to realize something unsettling. The future of society might not be determined only by events, but by perception. Two people could watch the same street scene and interpret it completely differently. One might see calm cooperation, another might sense quiet frustration building beneath the surface. Multiply that across millions of people, and perception itself could shape how societies evolve. The glasses weren't magical. They simply revealed how fragile human interpretation really is. Encouraged by these findings, the researchers expanded the experiment. They created new lenses designed to highlight different psychological cues. One pair enhanced micro-expressions, tiny facial movements that last less than a second. Another subtly exaggerated physical distance between people, making social separation more noticeable. Volunteers again watched footage of ordinary public life. This time, something even stranger occurred. Some participants began describing emotional currents moving through crowds. They couldn't always explain why. They just felt that something was shifting in the atmosphere of the scenes they watched. A few months later, many of those same cities experienced major demonstrations. It was as if the volunteers had glimpsed the emotional temperature of society before it reached boiling point. But the most disturbing discovery came from a completely different group of participants. These volunteers wore lenses designed to reduce contrast and soften visual detail. Instead of noticing tension, they described the same scenes as calm and uneventful. Even when subtle signals of conflict were present, they simply didn't see them. The researchers had unintentionally demonstrated something powerful. Perception doesn't just reveal reality, it filters it. and the filters we use may determine whether we recognize social change or miss it entirely. Years later, historians studying social movements would come to a similar conclusion. Major cultural shifts rarely appear overnight. They grow slowly through millions of small signals. A glance of frustration, a new phrase repeated in conversations, a subtle change in how strangers interact in public spaces. Individually, these signals are almost invisible, but collectively, they form the early patterns of transformation. Hammond's glasses never became a commercial product. The experiment faded into academic archives, largely forgotten outside a few psychology circles. But the idea behind it quietly spread. Urban planners began studying crowd behavior in new ways. Sociologists started analyzing subtle changes in language and body posture. Even intelligence agencies began paying attention to micro-signals within populations. They all shared the same realization. The future doesn't arrive all at once. It leaks into the present through tiny behavioral clues. Today, we live surrounded by tools far more powerful than those early glasses. Algorithms track online conversations. Cameras observe crowd movement. Artificial intelligence searches for patterns in massive streams of data. In a way, we've built digital versions of Hammond's lenses, systems designed to detect the earliest signs of change within society. But there's an irony hidden in this progress. Even with advanced technology, humans still struggle with the same problem the experiment revealed decades ago. We don't all see the same world. Our beliefs, experiences, and expectations act like invisible lenses. They highlight certain signals and hide others. Two people can watch the same protest, the same speech, or the same news story, and walk away with completely different interpretations of what is happening. In that sense, we're all wearing our own version of perceptual glasses. Some sharpen conflict, others soften it. Some reveal hidden tension, others hide it entirely. And when millions of people interpret reality through different lenses, society becomes a mosaic of competing perceptions. Which raises a strange question. What if the future of social movements isn't just shaped by events, but by the lenses through which people see those events? Perhaps the real power of Hammond's experiment wasn't the glasses themselves. It was the reminder that the earliest signs of change are always present. The signals are there, in conversations, in body language, in the subtle atmosphere of a crowd. But whether we notice them depends entirely on how we're looking.